So a lot of projects that are currently under development will just get axed immediately if this becomes law.
So the big beautiful bill wants to get rid of the tax credits for investing in solar and wind, which Trump and his administration are pretending like there's some solar and wind is terrible, which it's not. There are bad things you can point out with any source of energy, whether it's coal, natural gas. You've had natural gas plants freeze in Texas, like they created the issue a couple of winters ago.
Yeah.
So not only are they getting rid of these tax credits for solar and wind, but they're imposing new regulations and taxes on top of it.
Yeah, so I've been digging into this a bit. Let me do a kind of a quick rundown of some of the big changes in this latest Senate version of the bill, and then we'll switch to some third-party analysis of what the potential implications are and why I think this is so important. And just a little bit of like preface here, like we are in this AI arms race with China, and we've been talking for years on this channel about how we don't have enough energy right now to meet all of our needs. And energy is essentially like the new oil. That's going to be what feeds these, not only the training of AI, but also the use of it. We're using it so much more often now. That takes compute, that takes electricity to run the compute also. This is super important for our economic growth, our geopolitical competition, to be sure that we have enough electricity to meet all of our needs. So like my mindset is, I used to run wind plants, big fan of wind and solar, but like I was also involved with natural gas plants, and they all have pros and cons. And like the big issue is that we don't have enough of all of it. So I would say let's try to maybe not even incentivize, but let's just try to eliminate red tape and make this as streamlined as possible so that the free market can go out there and figure out what's the best mix and how can we get as many projects as possible moving forward. So with that groundwork laid, let's talk about some of the specific changes. So you mentioned the tax credits for wind and solar. So wind primarily gets the production tax credit, which is an actual direct payment for every megawatt hour of wind energy that's produced. For solar, it's a 30 to 50% upfront tax credit on the total capital cost. So if you've got a $1 billion solar project, you can get $300 million back as a tax credit right away. So that was extended under the previous Build Back Better plan of the Democrats to go all the way out to 2032. One thing developers and the capitalists in general like is certainty. So like that gave the developers a lot of certainty around, okay, these projects that we've got in our pipeline that we're spending very significant amounts of money on right now, we've got a roadmap to get them online by, let's say 2030, and then we'll have the tax credits, so even if we're a little bit late with that time frame. So having that certainty is like extremely helpful for these developers. That 2032 time frame got pulled forward to essentially 2038. So like you basically need to get your new plant up and running immediately, otherwise you won't get that PTC or ITC. So that's going to,
you mean 2028?
Yeah, so it would go away starting in 2028, but then there's also this
and there's something where they need to file by September 1st of this year, so they only have a couple months.
Yeah, so you need to actually hit what's called COD by 2027 in order to still get this credit. And if you're not like fairly close to construction, if not already under construction, you're just not going to meet that timeline. In other words, if you're still like making a couple like siting decisions, or if you're doing like your wind study and figuring out, okay, how good is the wind resource here, you're probably still at least 2 years out from getting your project in the ground and built. And so if that's the case, then you're not going to get these credits.
Matt, what is COD?
Oh, sorry, commercial operations date. So you build the whole thing, and then like you might be working for a little while, just like testing everything, making sure all your warranty stuff is all figured out. And then you're essentially going to say, okay, I'm commercially operational as of July 1st, 2025. And so that's like a very important mark in all of your contractual commitments, and then also in just how the assets operated, where you're selling your revenue commercially, or you're selling electricity commercially. So a lot of projects that are currently under development will just get axed immediately if this becomes law, because we're not going to make it by this new time frame. So the language I've seen a lot of these developers using is that they feel like they're getting the rug pulled out from under them, and I would say they are. They were operating under one set of expectations. I'm actually okay if like they wanted to pull these credits forward a little bit, but doing so aggressively, like all you're doing is like killing developers, increasing uncertainty. And I just think capitalists are supposed to play by the rules that are on the field. And to me, it'd be like when halfway, like in the third quarter of a basketball game, all of a sudden you just decide that like lines past the arc are now worth 6 points instead of 3. It's like, well, wait, that completely changes everything. You can't just change that in the middle of the game. So that's what I don't like about it, is just how severely that's changed. A couple changes to nuclear. There's this reduction of this 45Y, which is going to mean that future advanced reactors can't claim that credit. Hydropower has, I would say, probably a bit of a slight net negative. Hydrogen.
But the oil industry loves hydrogen, Matt. So what happened with hydrogen?
Yeah, so a couple different things. It did eliminate there was this dedicated green hydrogen credits called a Section 45V. That was eliminated, and there's only this 45Z credit that remains, which is like the oil and gas companies will actually probably like that, because you can essentially generate hydrogen off alternative sources of fuel and still get that credit. So I don't know, it just seems like that part was like structured to piss off the environmentalists.
So they got rid of the cleanest hydrogen and kept the dirtier version.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And the coal gets some nice goodies here. There's a mandate that 4 million acres of new federal leases must be opened up, and it streamlines their permitting. So then in conjunction with the reduction of the credits to renewables, coal is looking a lot more attractive. If you've got more supply of coal coming online, that'll lower your cost to operate. And so coal's looking a little pretty here, which, like, based on my experience, I don't think this actually helps coal too much. Like, I don't think you're going to start seeing a bunch of new permits to build new coal plants, because they're already so uneconomical on their own, just on how expensive it is. So this is just like going to make the existing coal plants slightly more profitable, I think. And I'm like, what is the point of that strategically as a country? And then natural gas gets a pretty nice benefit. They're restarting some offshore leases and some onshore leases, opening up some areas of the Alaskan coastal plain, accelerating some permitting. And then there's so that should reduce cost for natural gas, which you could certainly argue is a good thing for the country. So that stuff I actually don't mind too much. This actually goes to some of the stuff Howard Lutnick was talking about. We've got this huge like natural balance sheet of all this federal land and the natural resources, and we should be opening this up to permitting. I'm fine with that, but to do that and then at the same time be like pulling the rug out from the renewables projects, I'm not a huge fan of. Okay, so this group, they are in this renewable infrastructure space, so they're certainly biased here, but I think it's certainly clear that you're going to have some projects canceled as a result of these. So what you have here is like existing projects which are planned to get to the COD date, this commercial operations date, by certain years. And they've got an estimate of, this blue line is the draft that was in the House Ways and Means Committee. Then you've got like the House resolution, and then the Senate finance draft. And then this dark red line is the latest Senate draft from June 28th. And this is actually like the harshest in terms of the projected amount of cancellations on both solar PV and wind. So you're basically saying that like 40% roughly of your projects that are 2028 or later would be canceled just because they wouldn't pencil out anymore. Maybe that number is too high because these are estimates, but still, to my initial point, we want as many projects as possible kind of going forward to meet this growing demand. And let's go to the next slide.
So this is like half of the planned projects are canceled.
Yeah, almost. Yep. The number that I've been keeping in the back of my mind, projected to be. The number I've been keeping in the back of my mind is what like this total like energy challenge that we have right now of there's like huge build out of data centers and just load growth in general. By all estimates I've seen, it's about 150 gigawatts of incremental load growth. And so if you see the original blue funnel here, like there was a chance we could get there. It was probably not going to happen. I think most of the estimates I saw were actually saying that something in like the 100 gigawatts by 2030 was a bit more achievable. But like with this latest version, if you believe these numbers at least, then you're only going to be at like 107 gigawatts by 2030 of new generation capacity. So just if nothing else changes in the current forecast for AI data center load growth remains as is, like we've got a real problem on our hands, because they're like, as this subheader at the top says, the supply of new power plants cannot match the industrial data center load growth. Like if you talk to the GEs of the world or other gas turbine makers, they don't have enough supply to meet this 150 gigawatts. In fact, they can probably only do 50 gigawatts cumulatively by 2030. So solar and wind was poised to make up that difference. So if you're going to cut 40% of those projects, then all of a sudden this this gap becomes even more significant. So the natural implication for this is going to be that electricity prices will go up and fewer data centers will get built than otherwise would be the case. And that could actually harm our competitiveness in the AI arms race. So then let's go to the next slide here. Yeah, so I think the headline here at the top is just that the solar and wind projects represent 74% of planned new generators. So if you look at the interconnect queues, like almost all this new load growth is from solar and wind projects. So if you're cutting generator growth by 60% on like the vast majority of this load growth, you're really putting yourself strategically in a bad place. And then this last one is actually, we don't need to read through this, but maybe we can leave it on the screen for a second.
I think I see the word rug pull.
Rug pull, yeah. And I think that it is like this segue group that pulled these slides together. They're clearly an interested party, but as a neutral observer who worked in this space and kind of knows how these incentives work, like this is definitely a rug pull. It's extremely aggressive in how it.
And this is probably another reason why Elon's pissed off.
Yeah, it's just so dumb.
We're need as much AI arms race with China. We want to locate manufacturing back to the US. We have other new users of power that need power suddenly and can't wait 5 years for the interconnect process. You need power now, and here we are just kneecapping the power generators.
Yeah, I think, Jesse Pelton, who does some amazing analysis of all things energy on X, had the best summary. And he said, this isn't shooting ourselves in the foot, it's shooting ourselves in the chest. And it really is. Like, this is going to do very bad things for our overall competitiveness as a nation and for what was already going to be a pretty rough problem in terms of not enough electricity supply over the next 5 years to meet the growing demand. This significantly exacerbates that problem.
He's Matt Smith. I'm Bradford Ferguson. And with that, we're going to say bye for now.